Welcome. Welcome to Marketing Gone Wrong. Are you guilty? My name is Bob Jamison. I am VP of the East at Ad Taxi. This is the second edition of our four-part series. And once again, I have my two partners in crime. Megan, please introduce yourself.
Hello. Megan Bacour, Director of Client Services for the West Coast.
And Chris.
Chris Berkey, Director of Client Services for the East.
Great. Well, welcome back, guys. Once again, just want to remind everyone, just in case they were thinking otherwise, no one is perfect. So we're going to go through some common mistakes to avoid. Last time we went through the strategies that don't get aligned or communicated properly. This time we're focusing on where instead of who, which is something that unfortunately I feel like is unavoidable. It's ingrained in us from marketing of the past, and it's one of those things that's really hard to undo. So as you can see, this visual kind of depicts it rather well. That in the middle is you or any business owners, and the what's catching your eye there is a shiny website that you just need to be on because you think that's the place to go. Meanwhile, right next to you is a perfectly good prospect who might be on a local news channel or doing something else, and you're just not getting in front of them because you're so focused on ESPN. Guys, I know you see this when you're dealing with prospective clients, that the excitement about being in certain places. So would you comment on what those conversations are like and the detriment that goes along with it?
Yeah, I think, there's one example that sticks out in my head. Someone just had to be on the New York Times website. They just swore up and down, guys, you got to get me there. That's where my people are. Get me there. So we did, along with running a campaign beside it. That was how we would normally run it programmatically. And, the cost was much higher on the New York Times and the conversion rate was much lower. And it turned out that focusing on people wherever they might be versus going after that one particular site, worked out in the client's favor. I'm glad they let us run both that way so we could prove it out to them. Not every client does, but it was pretty telling once you looked at the data how much an open network type of scenario can benefit a client.
That makes sense. One of the things that if you think about the segmentation that has come with all these media choices and the ability to get your news, your content, your entertainment in so different ways, there's just a lot of choices. And I can't imagine a world like that without programmatic, right? The ability to tap into who you'd want to get in front of by their other characteristics, as opposed to just focusing on the content they're looking at, because at this point, the amount of choices would make that virtually impossible. So, some of the things that we come across and it really makes sense is we'll have a lot of clients and then our agency partners as well, because we do work with a lot of agencies, right? They come to us with sometimes ready-baked campaigns that are ready to go, and often you see that targeting and it'll just be chock full of demographics. And while that can be helpful, a demo does not comprise an entire audience. There's a lot of different ways to do that. And on our last series, we talked a little bit about market research, and I think it applies here. Every given business, and depending on the various service lines they have, might have different customers doing different things, and they may not all look the same. So where to reach them could vary, and you need to be, I would say, rather thoughtful about how you get in front of them here and everywhere. And then you need to consider all the factors that influence the key target. So that's important. And then Chris, you brought up the New York Times piece. I mean, the biggest issue there is the cost, right? You're paying a premium to be somewhere where it's just one of the places. And why prioritize that over any other site that those same individuals might be on throughout the course of the rest of their day? And then the amount of readership that might hit that page that aren't necessarily a fit to be a customer of the business that shows up there, and then risk of duplication. Any thoughts here that you want anyone to come away with besides what's depicted on these slides, guys?
I think the New York Times example is wonderful, because just because I visit a New York Times website doesn't necessarily mean I'm in market for a car. It just really is dependent on the people that are going to that website, but then also there's other areas where those car shoppers really are. Find them where they really actually are, instead of just assuming that they're on that one particular site.
Yeah. And this is interesting to me. Now, obviously, this is Philadelphia market specific DMA level TV networks, but I think the analogy or the depiction will be able to be understood wherever you are. But you think about television buying in the past, and this is just one example of how segmentation has really impacted things. This is the Philadelphia DMA. So obviously you have your CBS, your ABC, and your NBC affiliate. You can throw in Fox in certain markets as well. And then you have your zone cable buys, and that market happens to be Xfinity and Fios. And if you wanted to have TV coverage that way, number one, you had to buy a DMA level buy on those networks up top, or you're buying zone cable buys. So it could mean waste, right? Because you might not necessarily serve that whole DMA. So, these days they still exist, right? These networks are not gone. But there is all the competition there. So the viewing habits of everyone these days is a lot different, and it's a lot more segmented. Now, with that, you don't have to buy all these networks individually, and that's the beauty of it. And I think it's a blessing that you don't, right? Because then people will be like, give me Pluto, give me Plex. The reality is that you can tap into a lot of these and really base it more on who's likely to become a customer based on other characteristics besides what they're watching. Because I know that I am not in the market to buy a Ferrari, but I might watch the same TV shows as someone who does. So you'll be wasting money on me by getting an ad in front of me. And this is the latest research from Nielsen that kind of shows the amount of time TV usage wise. And look at streaming. 41.6% in the month of November, compared to cable at 25 and broadcast at 23.7. But the thing that sticks out the most to me is look how broken up streaming is. And this is the percentage there, 10.8, 7.7. It's broken up, and there's others, of course. But it's not like you could put all your eggs in even one streaming basket. So do you guys have thoughts about this particular slide? Because obviously we're seeing that number continue to move. It did surpass 40 a couple months ago, and it's already picked up a percentage point in a month. So thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's amazing how segmented it is now. It kind of, when you think back to how cable is, where you would, you might be watching USA 1 minute, then you move over to ESPN, it's kind of moved over to the streaming. I look at 4 apps a night trying to figure out what I want to watch, because everything's everywhere. And if you just tried to focus on one of them, you're not going to get me necessarily, right? If you're only focusing on Hulu and I'm watching Peacock tonight, I'm not there. So, being able to buy programmatically based on my intentions, being that auto buyer, you're going to be able to get me both places, no matter what show I'm watching, because you're able to buy all these different places at one time, rather than go, oh man, I got to do a direct deal with Hulu. Man, I got to do a direct deal with Roku. One-stop shop kind of way of buying is really, it's pretty great, and takes a lot of stress off of advertisers.
Yeah, agree. I don't know. This slide makes me think about how many streaming services I'm paying for, but so I have too many, I'm realizing. Programmatic allows us to kind of to get around this, and the focusing on the where instead of who. I think the what I'd want people to take away from this is that the inventory is out there to tap into, all of it, right? You can tap into it from just a few points of managing it, so you don't have to worry about that. But I guess if you guys could hammer home the idea that shouldn't be the focus by any way, shape, or form, that you almost want to find a way to make sure you're getting the best placements across the board, but that should not drive your buys. It should not drive who you're trying to get in front of. So, I mean, talk about the targeting that you guys see and how much better that could be to drive this.
Absolutely. I think one piece of this is the available audiences within a programmatic buy. You hear the in-market automotive, but do you know that the programmatic placements can get all the way down to the size of the vehicle that you're looking for, or the make, or even the model? Getting in front of a Kia buyer versus back to the Ferrari statement is going to look very, very different. And that PMP buy, or that segmented approach of the where, could just get you in front of the wrong audience a little bit more. And so refining that with audience targeting and better quality of inventory across the board is going to allow for you to reach those consumers anywhere, regardless of which website they're visiting.
Very good point. And I always like to just look back to how this would look in the past. Like, imagine being able to get an ad on all 3 local DMA networks, every cable zone you want, but only in front of the people that were likely to become a customer and not the people that weren't. That's essentially what we're able to do now, in a way, right? More likely to become a customer, and cut out the waste. So while segmentation could bring about confusion for a business owner, it also brings about the ability to get into TV buys that maybe the barrier to entry would have priced them out in years past. So, really good point. So what can we do, right? So I think the biggest takeaways are the advanced targeting piece, right? Use technologies that offer strategic distribution, the ability to tap into as many streaming apps or as many websites out there that provide news, or as many audio platforms or anything else. Tap into something that can do that, but also allow you to distribute it rather strategically, and really base it on targeting. And then Megan's big one, it's always about testing and adjusting, right? Make changes based on performance and the reporting that you're able to see. Well, someone saw your video, they ended up on your site, they viewed these high value pages. Those are the things that ultimately are going to matter most. And that's another beauty that we didn't even get into. The focusing on the where versus who happens a lot, but the ability to provide more attribution than you could with traditional buys is just one more thing that would help you confirm that you're doing things the right way. Any final thoughts on this topic, guys? Well, thank you for your time. Sorry. Thank you for your time. And we look forward to seeing you on our next part of the series, part 3.